On the night of April 14, 1912, in the freezing darkness of the North Atlantic, one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history was about to meet its fate. Marketed as the largest and most luxurious ocean liner ever built, RMS Titanic was widely regarded as a triumph of modern technology. To many, she represented the belief that human innovation had conquered the limits of nature itself. But Titanic did not sink simply because she struck an iceberg. The disaster had been years in the making. Too few lifeboats, design compromises, material weaknesses, ignored warnings, and a chain of human errors. When all of these factors converged, they produced one of the most famous maritime disasters in history. Titanic was more than just a passenger ship.
She was a symbol of an era defined by confidence, ambition, and technological progress. Built by Harland and Wolff in Belfast for the White Star Line, Titanic measured nearly 269 meters in length and weighed more than 46,000 gross tons. At the time, she was the largest moving object ever created by human hands. Her interiors were designed to rival the finest hotels in Europe. She featured grand staircases, elegant dining rooms, a Turkish bath, a swimming pool, and luxurious first-class suites. For wealthy passengers, crossing the Atlantic aboard Titanic was not merely transportation. It was an experience unlike anything the world had ever seen. Yet beneath this extraordinary elegance lay serious vulnerabilities. The ship's watertight compartments, though innovative, were not as secure as many believed. The bulkheads separating these compartments did not extend high enough to contain flooding under extreme conditions.
Titanic also carried far fewer lifeboats than were needed to accommodate everyone on board. Although the ship could have carried many more, only 20 lifeboats were installed, enough for approximately 1,178 people. That was barely half the number of passengers and crew she would carry on her maiden voyage. In addition, some of the rivets used in critical sections of the hull were made from wrought iron rather than stronger steel. Under ordinary circumstances, this was unlikely to cause a problem. But in freezing waters and under tremendous stress, these materials may have been more vulnerable to failure. On April 10, 1912, Titanic departed from Southampton, England, bound for New York City. More than 2,200 passengers and crew were on board. Among them were some of the wealthiest individuals in the world, hopeful immigrants seeking a new life in America, and hundreds of crew members responsible for operating the most advanced passenger ship ever built.
The atmosphere was one of excitement and confidence. Few could imagine that this voyage would become one of history's most enduring tragedies. The ship made brief stops in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, Ireland, before heading west across the Atlantic. As Titanic steamed toward North America, the voyage appeared routine. But a series of small details was quietly setting the stage for disaster. Shortly before departure, changes in the ship's officers led to an unexpected complication. The key to the locker containing binoculars for the lookouts was inadvertently taken by an officer reassigned at the last moment. As a result, the men stationed in the crow's nest had to rely solely on their eyesight. Whether binoculars would have changed the outcome remains uncertain.
But in a disaster defined by cumulative errors, even minor oversights mattered. Throughout the voyage, Titanic received multiple wireless warnings from nearby ships reporting dangerous ice conditions. These messages described fields of pack ice and large icebergs drifting unusually far south. The North Atlantic shipping lanes were known to be hazardous during the spring. In response, Captain Edward Smith had chosen a slightly more southerly route. But in 1912, an extraordinary number of icebergs had entered the shipping lanes. One of the most important warnings came from the SS Californian. Surrounded by dense ice, Californian had stopped for the night and transmitted a message informing Titanic of the dangerous conditions ahead. At the time, Titanic's wireless operators were overwhelmed with passenger messages being sent to shore.
The warning was not given the urgency it deserved. Within hours, Californian would become the nearest ship that might have been able to assist. On the night of April 14, the conditions were exceptionally dangerous. There was no moon. The sea was unusually calm. The air was bitterly cold. A faint haze near the horizon reduced visibility. Under normal conditions, waves breaking around the base of an iceberg could reveal its presence. But on this perfectly calm night, the ocean offered almost no visual clues. Titanic continued through the darkness at nearly full speed. At approximately 11:40 p.m., the lookouts Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee spotted a dark shape directly ahead. The warning they sent to the bridge was immediate and unmistakable. Iceberg right ahead.
First Officer William Murdoch reacted within seconds. Orders were given to turn the ship and reverse the engines. But Titanic was simply too large and too close to the iceberg. The ship began to swing to port. Rather than colliding head-on, the starboard side scraped along submerged projections of ice. The impact lasted only a few seconds, yet those seconds were enough. The hull was opened in several places below the waterline. Water began pouring into the forward compartments. Titanic had been designed to remain afloat if up to 4 watertight compartments were flooded, but more than 5 were breached.
The ship's chief designer, Thomas Andrews, quickly assessed the damage. After reviewing the flooding, he reached a devastating conclusion. Titanic would sink, and she would do so within a matter of hours. The vessel that had been described as unsinkable was now beyond saving. At first, many passengers did not understand the seriousness of the situation. The engines had stopped, but the ship remained brightly lit. Inside, the atmosphere seemed surprisingly calm. Some passengers were reluctant to leave the warmth and apparent safety of the ship for small wooden boats hanging above the icy ocean. But below deck, the reality was becoming impossible to ignore. Water surged through the lower compartments. Boiler rooms flooded one by one. Crew members worked desperately to keep the ship functioning for as long as possible.
Soon, the order to prepare the lifeboats was given. Yet Titanic's greatest design compromise now became painfully clear. There were not enough seats for everyone. Women and children were given priority. Families were separated, many for the last time. Some husbands and fathers stood silently on deck as their loved ones were lowered toward the dark ocean. Others refused to believe the ship would actually sink. Because of uncertainty and confusion, several early lifeboats were launched only partially filled. At the same time, acts of extraordinary courage unfolded across the ship. Crew members maintained discipline under impossible circumstances. Engineers remained at their posts to keep power flowing, and the ship's orchestra continued to perform in an effort to calm passengers as the situation grew increasingly desperate.
As midnight passed, Titanic's bow sank deeper into the freezing Atlantic. Distress calls were transmitted repeatedly across the ocean. RMS Carpathia, commanded by Captain Arthur Rostron, immediately changed course and raced toward Titanic's last known position. Carpathia pushed her engines to their limits, but she was more than 90 kilometers away. No matter how fast she traveled, she could not arrive in time. Shortly after 2 a.m. on April 15, the ship's final moments began. The bow plunged beneath the surface. The stern rose high into the night sky. Under the immense structural stress, the ship broke apart. At 2:20 a.m., Titanic disappeared beneath the waters of the North Atlantic.
In less than 3 hours, the most famous ship in the world was gone. Hundreds of people were left struggling in water below freezing. In such conditions, survival time was measured in minutes. Many died from hypothermia before help could arrive. By the end of the night, more than 1,500 people
had lost their lives. Only around 700 survived. Hours later, Carpathia reached the disaster site and began rescuing survivors from the lifeboats. What remained were scattered debris, haunting silence, and one of the greatest tragedies of the modern age. But Titanic's story is more than the tale of a shipwreck. It is a powerful reminder that no matter how advanced technology becomes, it can never eliminate the consequences of human decisions.
Compromises made for appearance, insufficient safety measures, warnings that were overlooked, breakdowns in communication, and critical choices made under pressure. Each factor alone may not have been catastrophic. Together, they proved fatal. The disaster transformed maritime safety forever. International regulations were rewritten. Ships were required to carry enough lifeboats for everyone on board. Continuous wireless monitoring became mandatory. And the International Ice Patrol was established to monitor iceberg activity in the North Atlantic. More than a century later, Titanic continues to captivate the world.
The story endures because it combines ambition, innovation, tragedy, and human vulnerability. It reminds us that even our greatest achievements remain subject to the forces of nature. And perhaps the most striking truth is this: Titanic did not sink simply because she hit an iceberg. Titanic sank because a chain of mistakes and unfortunate circumstances came together at exactly the wrong moment. The story of Titanic remains one of the clearest examples of how fragile humanity's confidence in technology can be. If you want to explore history's most fascinating events, great disasters, and the turning points that shaped our world, be sure to subscribe to the channel.